In recent years, there's been an explosion in negative advertising by plaintiffs' lawyers for lawsuits involving drugs and medical devices. In fact, plaintiffs' lawyers are now spending almost 3 times more money on drug and device advertising than any other single product or mass tort. Our expert is Rustin Silverstein, the president and founder of Ante, the premier source for analysis on advertising and marketing by plaintiffs' law firms. Rusty's going to break down the numbers and trends involved in lawsuit advertising in just a minute, but in case you don't watch cable or late-night network television, we wanted to give you an example of what we're going to be talking about.
Attention.
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 This is a medical alert.
This is a legal alert for the users of Xarelto.
If you have an IVC filter to prevent blood clots,
if you or a loved one took the blood-thinning drug Pradaxa,
have you or a loved one taken the drug Levaquin, Avlox, or Cipro?
Right hip implant patients are at a severe risk.
If you or a loved one have taken the type 2 diabetes drug Invokana.
If you or a loved one took one of these medications and then suffered
kidney failure,
type 2 diabetes,
permanent hair loss,
serious kidney problems,
serious complication,
DVT or deep vein thrombosis, and even death.
Death. You may be eligible to receive compensation.
Call us right now. You may be entitled to substantial compensation.
Pretty scary. Rusty, can you tell us a little bit about how much is being spent on these ads and who's spending it?
Sure, be happy to, and thank you ILR for having me. Hope you all enjoyed those advertising. You'll have sympathy for our data analysts who have to watch those all day, every day. First, let me just go through a few of the numbers of what are some of the trends we've been seeing. If you think these ads are on TV all the time, you're not imagining it, they are, and they are increasing. We estimate this year there'll be about $850 million spent on lawyer plaintiff solicitation advertisements on TV. That's up over 60% from just 6 years ago. The category within legal services advertising that is increasing, the major category that's increasing is drug and medical device mass tort advertising. As Malini mentioned earlier, it is a huge part of the MDL docket, and that is reflected in their TV advertising. We still see asbestos ads, I'm sure as we all do. It's a hardy perennial of the category. And we saw some automotive last year with VW and GM and the airbag, but drug and medical device is still the leader. And within drug and medical device, you'll see that those number of those ads are increasing. We estimate about 450,000 of them will run on TV across the country this year, local, cable, national broadcast. To put it in context, that's about 1,200 a day. 25 an hour, or 1 every 2.5 minutes. So over the course of our talk, 6 more will have run somewhere across the country. What other drugs and medical devices they're going after? Well, the way these advertisers think about it, they almost think like venture capitalists. They try to diversify their portfolio of products. And this is a good early indicator of where they're going to go with their lawsuits over the next 6 months, year, a couple years. So you see last year we saw Xarelto was the top product, as it is again this year. Some of the ones that have been some of the top topics over the last years, like hip implants and pelvic mesh, still high, but not as much. And we see new products like talcum powder, IVC filters that are coming along as those litigations start to emerge. But they still have other products that have been more mature litigation, like Pradaxa, which settled in 2014, but is still one of the top topics of advertising because, like all VC funds, they want to have some investments that are a little bit riskier but higher reward, some where the rewards are a little more secure, lower risk. Who's planning sponsoring all these ads? Well, the first thing to understand is that what we call plaintiff's lawyer advertising usually isn't. By that I mean those who are placing these ads are often not even law firms, and those that are law firms are not lawyers in the sense that many of us in this room are or were lawyers at one time. Just to cite 2 examples here, you'll see how concentrated the sponsorship of the advertising is. You see 5 firms on the side of the chart there, which account for about 40% of all the drug and device mass tort ads placed across the country. One of which I want to highlight is called the Rely On Group. They put up 31,000 ads last year. You watch their advertisements, go to their website. They call themselves a group of lawyers. They are actually not. They are a for-profit company that advertises on TV. As people call them, they will assess those cases and then turn around and sell them to interested law firms. One interesting thing to note about Relion is that they were originally backed when they were getting started by the Carlyle Group and by the private equity firm HIG Capital. One example of the outside investment money that is entering the mass tort space as an investment vehicle. The other topic that we're looking at is what's happening online. And one of the best metrics we see for online activity is Google searches. Google, as you know, has become the kind of global subconscious. And what we find is, like advertisers are appreciating everywhere, is that everybody's watching multiple screens at once now. And what we often see is people will see these ads on TV, and then they'll go online and Google it. So for example here, you see these are some of the drugs and devices that had the biggest increases in number of searches related to, for example, talcum powder lawsuits, litigation, attorneys, side effects since January. So, talcum powder and IVC, as we saw previously, IVC filters, some of the top products advertised on TV, and not surprisingly, people see those ads, they go online, they search for it. You go from 600 searches a month in January all the way up to over 15,000. And this is a way for companies who manufacture these products or are litigating them to appreciate how widespread is this advertising message permeating? How much is it infesting the public consciousness, both as a way to solicit plaintiffs, but also as they start thinking about going to trial, potential juries, how familiar are they with these products and the allegations being made against them? Another metric that we look at online is pricing for search advertising. As I'm sure we've all experienced, when you do a search on Google, Google makes their money by selling ads for the top results of those searches. And the way they price it, it's an auction system. So the greater demand there is for a high-placed ad, the higher the price is going to be. And what we can see is that by looking at how their pricing changes over months for different drug and device lawsuit queries, we see what are the top products that plaintiffs' lawyers are interested in targeting. And it's also often an early indicator. Before they go on TV, they will start placing these ads on search engines. So for example, over the last, for 6 months between January and June, on average, plaintiffs' lawyers and others were spending about $90 per every click someone clicked on an ad for IVC filter lawsuit. So by the way, if you're ever feeling spiteful or vindictive at your desk and you want to bankrupt or cost a little money to the plaintiff's bar, go ahead and click on a couple of these ads, and it's going to and they'll have to pay for it. So those are some of the trends. So we're looking at everything that's happening on TV, everything that's happening online, and as we've heard this morning, there's a lot of money flowing into this space. A lot of it's going into the advertising, and it only continues to increase.
Thank you. Now, Rusty, as we said, the video you looked at earlier, those commercials are pretty scary. In fact, last August, the Washington Post ran an op-ed by Lisa Ricard under the headline, "How Lawyers Scare People Out of Taking Their Meds." And in the op-ed, Lisa pointed out that the FDA has received what they call adverse event reports involving 30 patients who apparently stopped taking their blood thinning medication because they were frightened after watching one of these commercials on television. 2 of those patients died, 2 of them were paralyzed, and others suffered very serious events like heart attacks, cerebral hemorrhages, strokes. The FDA, as Lisa pointed out in the op-ed, strictly regulates what any pharmaceutical manufacturer can say about a drug or device, but no one regulates what plaintiffs' lawyers can say about those same drug or devices in their advertising. In fact, Lisa pointed out that we could find no evidence that any lawyer had ever been disciplined for any false or misleading information in their commercial. Rusty, you study this all the time. What other kind of impacts are you seeing from this kind of advertising?
Yeah, so we all appreciate how these can lead to more lawsuit filings, and I think that's certainly very clear. I do hear from physicians, cardiologists, public health researchers who have contacted us and say they have heard plenty of stories of people going into their doctors saying, I saw these ads, I stopped taking the drug, I don't want to take it anymore. Extraordinarily frustrating for these healthcare providers who feel like these ads are scaring people off of needed healthcare treatments. But beyond that, we are seeing other implications. So for example, plenty of companies say, look, we're also trying to run a business here. And when these ads run, it is turning people off from all the money we are investing in our own marketing and our own sales, and it's hurting us in that respect. Another interesting development that we've seen on the litigation side is not only are these ads running everywhere across the country, but we've seen that around the time of trials in particular venues, we've seen advertising targeted the drug or device that's at issue in those trials increase, and the content and tone of those ads actually change. So, for example, we've seen one instance recently where one of the law firms working with the plaintiff lawyer, actually in the trial at the time, is running an ad where they are citing quotes from a jury foreman in a previous trial saying this company cheated and they didn't disclose what they should have disclosed and people suffered from it. So they're actually making trial arguments in their advertisements beyond just soliciting plaintiffs, potential plaintiffs to call them for cases.
And this has not escaped the attention of the medical community. Last spring, the House of Delegates of the American Medical Association passed a resolution calling these lawsuit ads over drugs and devices, quote, fear-mongering, and said that the AMA was going to be advocating, either through legislation or regulation, that any lawyer that would run an ad for a drug or device would also have to include in that ad that you must please consult your doctor before stopping any medication. And Rusty and I were talking a little bit earlier. We probably looked at 40 ads to put together that little video we showed you at the beginning, and one said to consult your doctor before stopping your medication. So are you seeing any other avenues of reform? Or?
No. I mean, I think there's a growing awareness about the prevalence of this advertising. And I think as we heard this morning in the third-party litigation talk, there is a growing competition for cases. So we're seeing more aggressive levels of advertising and less, even more nefarious types of claim solicitation. So phone calls being placed, cold calls to people at home saying, hey, we heard you were on this drug, or we heard you, had this product. Do you want to file a lawsuit and get some easy money? And I think that's only going to increase as you have outside investors investing a lot of money and want to get a return on their investment. So we continue to see that, and I imagine it will only increase.
Okay. I think we're down to our last second, so Rusty will be available if anyone wants to send in a question to ask at the end of this afternoon's program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.